stars are there every night for anyone who cares to go out and look at them. And it raises all sorts of questions of self, one's place in the universe, what is the universe?
It used to be that the cosmos was considered off limits. This is where God lived, and we must stick to our own business here on Earth.
Outer space calls to the human soul and links what's within us with the infinity that is beyond us. We want somehow or other to be filled with that which is way beyond us.
And we started moving on and realizing that looking at space, looking at the Earth, examining, is part of obviously what we were meant for, because we were given these eyes, we have these brains.
The universe is a theater, and it wished to be perceived. We've been created here to do what? To witness and celebrate. We are the occupants of a theater.
What Star Trek has always been very good at, ever since its initial inception, from Gene Roddenberry's earliest days to all of the current versions that end up in movies and end up in television shows, is to show us possibilities.
I don't think it's any accident that in ancient pre-modern religions that the sky was holy, it was sacred. Our word heaven means where the gods dwell, and it also means in the sky where the birds fly around. And then add the component of power. There's thunder and lightning, and the gods of archaic religions were the gods of power.
There's certainly a pull that I think everybody feels, whether they're a scientific person or a religious person, trying to understand what is out there that is larger than oneself, what is larger even than a culture in which we're embedded. I think we've gone and explored the Earth so that we know what the other cultures are out there. We've sort of expanded our minds to encompass the different cultures on the planet, yet we're still asking the question, what then is beyond the Earth? Are we embedded in some broader galactic culture? I mean, what else is out there?
Space travel is the next step from the voyaging of the Italian ships, the movement of trade around the world, and then the religious experiment of opening ourselves to the universe.
Space travel represents, on two different levels, our idea of searching for God. On the one level is a search for more knowledge and more understanding about ourselves. And that's what we do with God at the most basic level. The other is that space travel represents achievements. We try to be better as a species doing something.
The astronauts actually can escape Earth's atmosphere and see space and be in it. We can't, so we have to do it with our imaginations, and that's where Star Trek and science fiction come along. They elicit that sense of outer space within our imaginations.
There's a very spiritual aspect to Star Trek. Some people do sort of view it as a religion. The idea of searching, the idea of questing, of looking for answers, that's a spiritual quest, and that's the mission of the Enterprise.
Grand, life-changing kinds of journeys and pursuits that are worthy of science fiction is what, Star Trek is about. So, and I personally resonate with that in terms of a journey and, who is God? What's my relationship with God? What's that about?
And the fact that there was still this push for a spiritual or religious understanding of the universe is an interesting topic for Star Trek to have gone after, and I think it goes back even to the earliest TV shows.
The Star Trek stories, in general, have captured that spirit of inquiry and not being able to predict how each encounter will turn out as we go out and find new knowledge.
Are you machine or being?
I am both, and neither.
I suppose you want them back now.
What is it?
Landru. He's summoning the body.
Who is Vol?
Vol is Vol. He is everything.
The starship Enterprise lands on this planet, and people are having trouble with this Greek god.
I am Apollo.
And I am the Tsar of all the Russias.
Mr. Chekhov.
I'm sorry, Captain. I never met a god before.
And finally, they confront Apollo, and Apollo is melancholy. He said, back on Earth, nobody believes in the Greek gods anymore. And he didn't have the power and influence. So he'd escaped to this planet, and he could be a god again. And the reason people don't believe in the gods on Earth is they've become secular and they've become scientific. And I thought, now this is a very profound insight into how human spirituality works. I felt at the end of the episode, they spoiled it though, because they got in a battle with Apollo and they shot phasers into Apollo's temple and they destroyed it. So finally science and technology won over the gods one more time. But at least the question was asked, what do you do with gods when they're out of a job?
V'ger. Look at V'ger in Star Trek I. This is a superior being that has to be taught a lesson. And yet it decides in the end to become transcendent, not become supreme, but move to another layer of superiority. And in Star Trek, often that means, leave us alone. You go get even more superior. Leave us alone. We'll stand in awe and say, pretty cool. In Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, you have an almost Faustian view of the world. Kirk's ex-wife is a maker of worlds. She's a maker of life. And in the old Frankenstein mythos, in the old Greek mythos, this was hubris. This was taking on the power of heaven, the power of the gods, and you would be punished. The notion, if I'm good as a civilization can be, the Federation in Star Trek, if we're good, then we get to unroll Dad's blueprints and make stuff. And that's sort of what we're doing right now in real life, and it's expressed in Star Trek II, in Wrath of Khan, when Kirk's ex-wife says, can I cook or can't I? And she's made life, she's made a planet. And then in Star Trek III, every checkbox of the Frankenstein myth is checked off. Oh no, we shouldn't have picked up God's tools. The planet that we made is evil, and therefore it's falling apart. It's not good. It's made of garbage. Of course, Spock comes from there, but we will forget that. It's falling apart, and the Frankenstein myth that the creator must be killed by his creation. These are two entirely different notions of spirituality, of our relationship with the act of creation.
I've had emails, people say that, where is religion in Star Trek? Where is religion in Star Trek? And I don't think religion is gone, but I think at that point in our future, we've started to believe in humanity as much as we believe in religion.
And one of the themes that runs through is typified by Star Trek V, the notion of what we do about the spiritual. Will the charismatic leader who claims to have the truth be able to reach into our hearts and pull us in some direction, almost against our will, but with a frightening amount of cooperation from us as well?
This pain has poisoned your soul for a long time.
Even within Kirk and within Spock, they have to do this internal self-examination. So on the one hand, it's the beyond, it's the limitlessness of space, but on the other hand, we deal with the most intimate things from within.
It's a very interesting moral lesson that Star Trek V is teaching, and I think it's in some ways an underrated member of this series. Scientists come in all sorts, and some claim that the lack of Harry thunders yelling unambiguously in the sky proves that they aren't there. At the opposite end, there are scientists who are constantly looking for evidence of planning in nature.
Some people talk about then a God creating that universe. I think scientists often tend more to think about the laws of physics and how they pertain to the formation and evolution of the universe and of life itself. So there's really two cultures that look at this, and they certainly interact back and forth, but I think they come out of a very common human experience, which is to understand our place in the broader universe.
And Star Trek has dallied with this again and again and again. The notion that the universe is conveniently designed down to the hundredth of a percent in the ratio between the proton and the electron. If it were only a hundredth of a percent different, plus or minus, life could not have appeared in our universe. These are what are called the Gosh numbers. And they've been discussed in science fiction and in Star Trek. And it raises an interesting question. Did evolution somehow channel us into this narrow type of universe in which life could thrive? Or was it a function of design?
I think when SETI finds other worlds, other creatures, which in many cases will be more advanced than we are, it is going to show that many of our contemporary religions are too limited. It will open the doors to expansion, broadening of those religions, and overall I think this will lead to, if you will, an improvement in religion. And in fact, it could well lead to people becoming more religious.
It's kind of like outer space is calling us on the telephone, you know? The phone rings and we answer it and you say, yes, I was hoping you would call.
As for the specific notion of running into an alien race that pretends that it's not just superior but supreme, in Star Trek it's been done a number of times. Demigods, not supreme beings but superior beings, don't do very well in Star Trek, not if they're snooty.
The final scene of Star Trek V is a paradigm for the series as a whole.
Cosmic thoughts, gentlemen?
Dr. McCoy asks, can we find God by traveling in outer space? And Captain Kirk says, no, we find God by looking in the human heart.
He's right here.
It's the beyond and the intimate. That's the genius of Star Trek.